Hi everyone, Lisa Gifford here, and welcome to our next installment of the Martelli Sew and Show subscription box. And this one is our May subscription box 2025, and I am very excited about this one. I hope you love it as much as I love it, and I'm getting ready to open it up. Y'all ready? So this is what you received this month, this amazing packaging with our signature Martelli rotary cutter all over the front of it. All right, so let's open it up and let's see what we have inside. Everything in here is going to be what you're going to need to be able to make this month's project, the whole thing from beginning to end. And this video is going to show you every step in the process, and I am so excited. All right, so first thing, we're going to pull out. We got our roadmap here, and look at this. Make your own Daisy May table runner. And daisies have a special place in my heart. Can't be sad when you're playing with daisies. They are just the most awesome flowers. So let me open everything up. Let's see that's in here. So you've got your template set in here. You also have all of your fully written instructions in with the packaging. You also have all the fabric that you're going to need. So let me pull all of this out and let's see what all we got as in fabric. You are going to have the two-piece Martelli template set. So you're going to have the two pieces in here. You're going to have your petal and you're going to have your circle template. So you're going to need these two pieces right here. Of course, your written instructions. It also comes with 6 4-inch by width of fabric pieces, and you will have 2 dark, 2 light, and 2 medium. So here's your 2 darks, 2 mediums, and 2 lights. So you've got all of them are 4 inches all ready for us to be cutting. All right, so then after you do that, you're going to have 1 yard of white cotton fabric. And so here's your white cotton fabric. You're going to have a 6-inch by width of fabric piece of yellow cotton. This is for your daisy centers. You're going to have a 6-inch piece of woven fusible interfacing. So it's fusible on one side and it's woven, and there's a reason for that. Plus you're going to have 3/4 of a yard of this beautiful blue polka dot. And you're going to have an 18 by 45-inch piece of cotton batting. All right, so that's all the items that's in your bag for your subscription box. I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to set all these aside. I'm going to talk about some of the things that you're going to need to be able to do this project. And I've kind of got them all over here, so I'm going to slide them over. You will need some pins or some clips. I've got some clips here. You will need some pins. They're going to be very useful for this project. Some coordinating threads if you so desire to have some coordinating threads. Of course, your rotary cutter, your 45 or your 28 millimeter. You're going to need, I think pinking shears work the best for this project. You've got some curves you're going to have to be clipping, or you can just clip with your scissors. You're going to need a tool for smoothing out all of your edges, a marking tool. I've got some chalk here. You're going to need, I'm going to show you this cute little idea I saw on the internet for making your own quick little when you're cutting apart all of your chain piecing, but you might need a seam ripper. And that's all the main items. Of course, some fusible, some basting spray is something that you might want to use. I got some 401 or 404 over there. I recommend you starch your fabrics, particularly your white fabric. Get it all nice and crisp, get everything all pressed. Of course, a great iron. So those are just some of the main things that you're going to be needing for all of this. This is our Daisy May table runner that you are going to be making, and it is 16 by 54, and the 54 goes from the edge of the petals all the way to the other side. So I kind of envisioned this where I wanted the daisy to kind of pop off the background of a blue sky. So that's what this all came about. So you're going to be learning how to create this on the end where you've got the daisy petals just kind of coming off, and then they kind of come off here on in the center, and then you have it repeating on the other side. So again, I'm going to teach you a little bit about doing quilt as you go, because when we put all of our blue strips together, it's a quilt as you go method. And then we're going to be talking about putting everything together, and that's a lot of applique work. So, and then of course, it's just going to be so much fun putting this all together. And I have a couple, this one is our first main example, but I have a couple other variations that I wanted to show you. This one was the very first one that I had done. And if you didn't want to have the petals coming off the end, you could easily just have it done where it's just half a daisy on each end, and that's what I had done here. Of course, the difference will be the technique will be a little bit different. You won't be binding your base before you put everything on. You do the binding at the very end. So this is one that I had done. I'm going to show you another variation. Now this one needed a little bit more blue strips in sewing this one together, and instead of it going long with the quilt as you go, I did with pieces, and I just sewed a big long strip with all of my blues, and then I just pieced it on here. So it took a little bit more than the 6 strips to be able to make one where I had the blues going vertical instead of horizontal. So that's where this one came about. So there's just a lot of different ways on how you want to make it. If you wanted to, you could even take that component of the daisy and just make a simple little centerpiece. You could put some polytherm in here, and it could be like a hot pad for your table, or it could just be a simple little centerpiece that you have on your table. And that was just putting this onto a large circle. I'm thinking that this circle here is 16. I think I did a 16-inch circle to making this piece, and it's just appliqued onto a circle. So it was a lot of fun. Put some good batting in here just to give it a little bit of body and some puffiness to it. So that is just a couple ideas that you can do with your daisy templates. You can use it for applique. You could put a big daisy on a t-shirt. It would just be so many different ideas that you could do with the daisy template set. Okay, so let's get back to our instructions. And we're just going to work our way through it so that everybody has an idea of where we're going and how it all comes together. So the first thing you do, you're going to see as you're looking at your pattern, I've got fabric cutting instructions and I've got it all broke down. So the first thing is you're going to take your blue strips, and that's all of your big 4-inch pieces. You're going to have 6 of them in here. And you need to trim them down to 3 inches. So I made it a little bit bigger, the 4 inches, so that in case you wanted to go straight of grain, you'd be able to maneuver it to get straight of grain. So all of your pieces all need to be trimmed down from the 4 inches to the 3 inches. So I've just kind of got these here right here. You could press them first and get them trimmed up. But here I've just got my little 3-inch ruler here, and I'm just going to trim it off on both sides. So I kind of like set it onto my mat. And we're just going to trim off on both sides because we need this to be 3 inches. So all 6 pieces need to be trimmed down to the 3 inches because we're not going to be working with the 4s, we're going to be working with the 3. So you've got 2 darks, 2 mediums, and 2 lights to work with. So once you get all of your blue pieces all trimmed down, got one more to do here. Then we're going to set them aside. So I'm just kind of lining this up on a line and just centering my ruler on here, and we're going to get them all trimmed down to my 3 inches. All right, so do that for all 6 pieces. Once you have them done and pressed, just go ahead and just take them and set them aside. Because we got some more prep work to do before we even get to our next step. So let's take your pieces, set them aside, and then next we're going to move on to our white fabric. So what I want you to do is once you get your white fabric out, I want you to press it. Now, Be sure that you have a clean iron when you do all of your pressing. Ask me how I know. I had a little bit of fusible that had kind of gotten onto the bottom of the iron and it left a mark. So if you haven't cleaned your iron, make sure your iron is very well clean, because you don't want anything on your iron getting onto your white fabric, or any fabric for that matter, but it shows up very well on our white fabric. And I've got a really good fabric here. I got a good name brand. I believe this came from Bella. And the reason why I wanted a really dense white is because you don't want it to be see-through. So once you get your fabric completely ironed, all nice and flat, and I recommend adding a little starch to it to get it all nice and firm, because this is going to be used for all of our petals. We have to cut out 24 sets, or 48 total petals. So once you have your fabric ironed, I want you to go ahead and refold it back together, right sides together, opposite of how it came off the bolt. So you want it to be right side together, because once we get it cut, our pairs cut, we're going to be able to keep them together to do all of our petal cutting. So once you have it all cut, all pressed and refolded right sides together, then you're going to take this entire piece, and you should have about 36 inches, maybe a little bit more, but you're going to cut all of this whole thing up into 7-inch strips, because this is what you're going to be using to cut all of your petals. So I'm going to get my ruler out, and we're going to start cutting them into 7-inch strips. You will need, I believe, all 5 strips to cut it, but not fully all of them, but you're going to cut all of it into 7-inch strips. So there's my 7, then I'm going to go to my 14. 21, and so forth. You're just going to cut the whole thing up into 7-inch strips all the way across. So I've just got 3 of them here. Right, so once you have all of your strips cut, now we're going to go ahead and cut out our petals. So you're going to take one of your strips. I'm just going to grab one of the strips that I just cut, and you're going to grab your large petal, and this is what you're going to be doing to do all of your cuts. You're going to place the straight edge onto the straight edge of your 7-inch strip, and be sure to move it farther enough to the side so you're not cutting into the selvages over here. You should be able to get 4, 5 cuts. Let's see how many cuts that we can get out of a strip. So I just have my template laid onto here. Again, my 2 pieces are right sides together, and this is my 7-inch strip. Got my straight edge along one edge over here. But you do have enough room where you could bump it up just a little bit, where you could trim it off at that to make it even with the template. And then you're just going to go ahead and cut out your petal. So I just kind of rotate it as I go. And then you're going to cut your next one where it's going to be on the opposite side. So I'm just lining it up, getting as close to this edge over here. And then we're going to cut out our next petal, our next set. And I just kind of stack them up. Each daisy gets a total of 8 petals. So you're going to be cutting out, like I said, 24 sets. It's a total of 48 of the petals. So I get my next one, just line it up on the edge. I believe we can get 4 or 5 out of a strip. So if we get 5, there's 3. Flip it to the other side. And I just kind of stack them up. 4 strips gets us 20. And we have to have 24, so we have a little bit left over at the end. Here's 4. And then here's my last one. And just getting it all the way around. And they're already stacked right sides together. So continue cutting all of your white strips till you have all 24 of your petals all cut out. And then once they're done, you're going to set all of them aside. Now we're going to go for our yellow piece. From this large yellow piece, you're going to need to get 6. We need 6 circles. And you've got your interfacing. So if you want to take your interfacing, go ahead and fuse it onto 1/2. So let's go over to the ironing station and we're going to get our interfacing fused to our yellow fabric, because 3 of the circles need interfacing and 3 do not. So I'm just taking my interfacing and I'm laying my glue side onto the wrong side of my piece of yellow fabric here. And we're just going to press that down. I got a little bit of a wrinkle there, so I'm going to smooth that wrinkle out. Flip it over, smooth it out. We should be able to get 3 circles cut out of this side and then 3 circles cut out of the other side. But we're going to cut them into 6-inch squares. So this is just getting the 3 ready for cutting them out. All right, so once you got that fused on one side, we're going to go ahead and cut 6-inch squares out of all of our pieces. So I'm just going to kind of fold it. I have a 6-inch template here. I'll get 2 of them cut at a time. There's 2, 4, and then here's our 6. So they're already in their pairs. So now we're going to go ahead and get our circles made. So this is where you're going to grab or pick up your Daisy May. And this is going to help us make our circles. And you'll see it says fold on the 2 edges here. So you're going to grab your yellow pieces, and I'm grabbing one with a fusible on it, and I'm just folding it in half, giving it a finger press, and then I'm going to fold it in half again. So now I've got like a square now, and I've got 2 sides with folds, folds and folds. So you're going to take your template and you're going to place the 2 sharp straight edges with the folds onto those folds right here and here. And once you have it lined up, then we're going to cut on the curve right here. So you're just going to cut around that curve. Now I'm going to teach you a trick. We need to mark everything evenly. So keeping it folded, I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it one more time. Just like this. So now it looks like, a slice of pie. Now I'm going to clip these pieces right here. I'm going to clip it here, and I'm going to clip it here. So when I open it up, I will have 8 marks. So I'm clipping these areas of the folds on this side, and then I'm going to do clips over here, marking this part here. So now when I open all of it up, I have 8 evenly spaced spots right here. So if you can see, I'm going to kind of mark it here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that's important. You need to have this done on 2 of the sets. I think in the instructions I say do it to all of them, but you really only need it for 2 of the sets. So I'm going to go ahead and grab another one. Now this is the one without the fusible. I'm going to finger press it and then fold it again. Place my template on here on the double folds, just like we just did. And we're going to cut at the curve. Keeping it folded, I'm going to fold it up again, bringing the fold over to all the folds. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my clips on all these. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to get my little clip here. So now when I open it up, I got my evenly spaced 8 pieces. And you're going to do that to all 4 sets, and then the last set you don't need to, but you're going to go ahead and cut out your circles. So get all of your circles cut and all marked. So let me do another set here. So I'm going to fold this one, and then this one again, keeping everything together. Place my template on all the folds. Cut that curve. Here's another way. You could go ahead and clip here and here and then do the final clip. I just like to fold it in half. Nice and straight and even. Get my little mark here. Clipping all these little spots. And then clipping the other. And then open it all up. You'll be able to see your little marks. Let me see if I got all of my samples done. One more. Fold and fold. Give it a finger press. Kind of holds everything in place when you set your template on here. Fold it over. Everything all done. All right, once you have all of your circles all cut, you're going to set the 3 sets aside. So we've got a lot of things that we're setting aside. All right, so I'm going to get all this out of our way. Now we're going to go to our big piece of our, let's see, the backing and the binding fabric. So that's our big piece of blue polka dot. And you have, I believe, 3/4 of a yard, so I think it'd be like 27 or so inches with this. So go ahead and get it pressed. I've already pressed it, but it's kind of gotten refolded back in it. Now we're going to cut. You're going to get one edge all nice and straight. and you're going to cut 3 2.5-inch strips off of one end. These pieces are going to be your binding that you're going to need for the whole project. So first I'm going to take a little bit off of this edge and get it nice and straight. And then you're going to cut 3 2.5-inch strips off of this piece. This is going to be your binding. One. Two. And 3. We're going to get the third one cut off. There you go. Take those and set those aside. We'll be sewing those together for our big piece of binding. Now this should leave you with a piece that's about, I want to say 19.5 inches, about 20 inches. This one's about 20 inches. So you want it to be about 19.5 inches, but this one's right at 20. I'm going to trim this off just a little bit and get it to my 19.5 because it's just off a little bit. So I want this piece to be 19.5 inches because this is going to be our backing. So there's our 19.5 inches ready to go. Once we have that done, then we're going to go ahead and set this aside for just a minute. It's not going to be long before we're using this one. Now we're going to get our big piece of batting out. Now you should have gotten a piece that's, I believe, 18 by 45. Now this one's going to be really important. You want these edges to be nice and straight because one of the edges is going to be your starting point for our quilt as you go. So I am folding it in half and matching up my edges. Now I believe this is about 46 inches long, but I'm not worried about the length of it as I'm worried about I want my edges to be nice and straight. So we need to trim this up to 17 inches wide. So I'm going to set this on my mat and I'm going to probably trim a little bit off of both sides. So I'm following a line here and I'm going to trim off some on each side to get it to 17 inches. So we're going to slide it over. I'm going to trim off this side and then I'm going to turn it and then I'm going to trim it off on the other side. This needs to be 17 inches. All right, nice and straight. It's very important to have at least one good side nice and straight because we'll be trimming it once we get it at the very end. So here's one side, flip it over, and now we're going to get our other side trimmed to the 17 inches. Smoothing it out. Right at the 17. Double check. All right, so now all of our fabrics and all of our prep work is where we need for it to be. So we're going to go ahead and start layering or sandwiching all this together. So let's grab our backing and our batting, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So let's head over here to the ironing station. I'm going to show you on my design wall. So how I started was I took my blue backing and I laid it onto my wall, and I have it laid where I've got the right side down, wrong side up. Then you're going to take your batting and you're going to center it between into the center of the blue. Once you have it positioned, secure it in your best way that you would either use your basting spray, or like I have some 505 adhesive here, or you could pin it. So I kind of like bring my bottom down or bring my bottom up, and I give it a light spritzing, smooth it all out, and then do the same thing until it's all secured. Everything is all secure on here. And this is my straight edge that I need to have. You need to have your good straight edge, because this is our starting point right here for sewing our Quilt As You Go all the way across, all of our strips going all the way across. So once you have it all secured and ready to go, so now we're going to start sewing all of our strips onto here. So make sure all your strips have been pressed to and trimmed to your 3 inches by width of fabric. You're not trimming off anything off the edges. And we're going to sew our first piece on here. So you got 2 lights, 2 darks, 2 mediums. So how I had done, it's any way you want it to be. You could go dark, medium, light, dark, medium, light, or you could go however you want to arrange them. I wanted the darkers to be more on the outside because of the framing it with the lighter of the binding going around it. Or you could have the light, medium, dark, however you want to arrange it. For me, I go dark, medium, light, dark. So that's just the layout that I'm going to be doing on this one. So once you have it all ready to go, let's go ahead and take your piece. I'm going to bring it over here because I'm going to show you where we're going to start. So I'm going to grab my first fabric of my strips that are all prepped and ready to go. So I'm going to start with my light on this one. So I'm going to lay my light strip on here. It can be either way you want it to be. I like to have my lightest selvage up here on the top, and we're going to stitch this down. But the first stitch is going to be where we're going to baste this edge onto your piece. So you're going to do a basting stitch. So I'm going to set on this, and I'm going to stitch it all the way down on the one side first. Because when we're working our way across on doing this. So I like to lay it on here, making sure it's going to be nice and straight. So, and be careful when you're pressing your strips so that you don't inadvertently put a bow in it. Make sure you're pressing and everything is staying straight. And we're going to baste it, stitch it with the right side up, wrong side down onto the one edge of your straight piece of batting here. So if you wanted to match your threads, you could have, I just have white that's going to be on the back side, or you could maybe match it up the blue. You could have the blue be in your bobbin, but I'm just going to do everything all in white. And I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch along this edge first, not the inner edge, but the outer edge right here all the way down. So we're going to just get it all on here, and we're going to stitch it down. So I'm going to start here, stitch it all the way down, and we'll get started on that. It's going to be just a basting stitch. All right, get my glasses, and we'll get started on that. So I have my machine set up where I'm raising my stitch count all the way up to 5. And we're just going to sew 1/8 of an inch, not 1/4 of an inch, but 1/8 of an inch all the way down this one side. And just kind of holding it as we go. We're going to be trimming off at the very end. The strips are about, 42 inches, I would say. So we're going to get it to 40 inches when we get it all the way done. Just kind of holding it in place. Getting that little basting stitch done on the edge. Readjusting as we need. Okay, so that's how you do your very first strip. We're going to just baste it into place. Now you're going to grab your strips, because now we're going to be stitching them all the way across. So let me go grab my next grouping. Got them all right here. So the next one, I'm going to do a medium, one of my medium colors. So I'm doing light, medium, dark. So here's where you're going to take your strip, and now you're going to place it right sides together as you're going to be sewing these strips together. So I'm just kind of lining it up along the edge, and now we're going to do a 1/4 inch regular stitching, your regular 1/4 inch stitch, and I have it, you know, at the 1.8, that's the machine is set up for. And we're going to do a 1/4 inch all the way down, keeping everything nice and straight as we get it all stitched down. Now, I like to fold it in a little bit so I'm not fighting anything. I just kind of have it draped in my lap so it's not going to be pulling on nothing, and we're just going to strip it 1/4 inch all the way down, just keeping anything nice and smooth. I'm letting the machine do all the work, keeping it nice and smooth as I go. Doing this, there's going to be a lot of stitching, and then we're going to get up and we're going to iron it. We're going to iron after each strip. Don't do this one in big bites. I just kind of take my time, smoothing everything out, go about 4 or 5 inches, smooth it again. Making sure nothing's shifting. Coming up onto the end. Last little bit. Don't worry if your edges don't match up, just sew off to the end. All right, so now we're going to press. After every time we sew a strip, we're going to press it. So I just lay it out on my table. Keeping everything nice and straight, and then I'm going to just gently roll it back and just kind of finger press it into place. And then I'm going to just press it. Keeping everything straight. All right, so that's our first 2 rows. So now we're going to add our next row. So I got a medium, a light, medium, so let's put a dark one here in the center. And just like we did, we're going to line them up here on the top and just 1/4 inch stitch it all the way down. Just lining up our edges. Let the machine do all the work. Kind of give yourself some slack in your lap so it doesn't pull. And you're going to continue this process for every single strip till you have all of them done all the way across. Let's get this one on here. Bit more. All right, so that's strip number 3. Let's go ahead and get this one pressed. And just like we did before, we're just going to smooth it out and just kind of give it a finger press away, keeping everything nice and straight. And you're going to continue doing this till you have all 6 strips all the way across. When you get to your last strip and you've got it pressed, then you're going to do the same thing as you did for your first strip. You're going to do a basting stitch on the edge all the way across. So imagine I have all 6 of them all the way across, and then my last one, after I get it pressed, then I'm going to do my basting stitch on the edge of the last strip. Then, once you have that done, we're going to trim it down to, so you're going to trim off all of this excess. So you'll have some excess here. So you're going to trim it up against the edge of your first piece, and then you're going to trim it at the edge of your second piece. And it should measure about 15 and a half inches all the way on width. It could vary a little bit based on how wide your seam allowance is. One I did was 15 and a half, another one I did was 15, so it just depended on how much of a bite I might have taken as I was sewing it. It's not going to make any difference at the very end because you kind of want your daisies to kind of overlap at the center as I wanted it to be. And then once you get that done, once you get your sides trimmed nice and straight, then you're going to trim off each end and make sure it is a total of 40 inches all the way across. So after you do that, you're going to trim it down to the 40 inches. Then I need for you to bind it. So this one here is where I have it all done and my binding is already on it. So just use your preferred method for your binding and get it completely bound. So I just did my 2.5 inch strips, I stitched them together, and then I did my binding. And I found that when I started my binding on one of my short ends, on this end, or on the opposite end, but if I did it on a short end, I'm not going to have any of the seams falling into my corners. And then I just did my, however you prefer doing your binding, and then instead of stitching in the ditch, I just did a little snaky stitch going all the way around where it just a little wavy stitch to hold it down. But this is your piece. Once you have it completely trimmed to 40 inches, put your binding on it, and then this piece, now we get to set this aside, because now we need to start working on creating our daisy centerpiece and our daisy end pieces. So get this done and then set this piece aside. So let's get back to our instructions again, because now you've got the table runner. I'm calling that the Quilt As You Go table runner base. That's our base for our daisies. So now we're going to go ahead and start getting all of our daisy petals ready. So remember when we cut out 24 sets of daisy petals? So I'm going to grab all of my daisy petals. We're going to get them all stitched up and top stitched on all of them. So each daisy there's 8 petals for each daisy. So if you're doing the full daisies on each side, you're going to have 8 on this one, 8 on this one, and then the full one in the middle. Unless you're doing half daisies, then you're just going to need only 16 of the petals. But now that you've got your base done, grab your petals, and now we're going to stitch all of those up. So they're already right sides together. So we're going to take a pair and we're going to sew it all the way around, leaving the straight edge open. So we're going to do a 1/4 inch on all 24 pieces. You're going to stitch all of them together, all the pieces. So let's get these, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to do these. And I kind of chain piece these as I went, so it was pretty quick. But I have my machine set up for my regular stitching at a 1/4 inch, and we're just going to stitch all the way around. So you're going to start here, 1/4 inch all the way around, and then come off the end. And you're not stitching across. We're leaving this piece open for turning. So I got my machine set up, and we're going to start getting all of our stitches done. Now if you wanted to clip them and pin them, you can, but I just kind of hold them. Got my first one done. Now I'm going to grab my next one, and we're going to start sewing it all the way around. Grab your next one and go around. And you're just going to continue doing this till you have all 24 of them all stitched. Let's grab it, get another one done. And let's do one more. Okay, I have a couple of them already chained up, so I wanted to show you this. I saw this somewhere online. So this is where, if you have any of these little seam rippers that come with your machine, and this is one of your spool, it's for your spools, the threads for your machine. I saw if you pop it into here and have it where you've got your little seam ripper right in front of you, I call him Jack, how easy it is to quickly separate all of your chain piecing with it like that. I just had to show that because I thought that was a neat little trick on quickly separating all of our chain pieces. But once you have all of your pieces done and you've got them all separated, now I need for you to either clip the curve or you can use some pinking shears. Now I am not trimming it all the way around. I'm literally just going to go ahead and just do the curve where I'm cutting with my pinking shears, and I'm being careful to not get too close to my stitches because you put a little bit of stress on it when you go to turn it and pushing everything out. So I'm just doing the curve part. I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just trimming the curve with my pinking shears. So I'm just going to snip off some, going all the way around, being careful to not get too close to my stitches because when I go to press it out, sometimes my little needle, my knitting needle will go right through it, and we don't like that happening. So we're going to go ahead and get it all trimmed around on all of your pieces. And then we're going to turn them right side out, and we're going to press them, and then we're going to top stitch them. Let's do one more. Just trimming just the curve. Making yourself a big old mess. It's so relaxing to make these. They go, you have a lot of them. You got 24 of them that you got to do. But taking the time, and instead of cutting out 48 of them, having them already together so you don't have to put them together. All right, so now here's the trick, a quick little trick for turning them. I kind of give it a little shift to pop it open, kind of press it up, and then I'm just kind of pushing it, rolling it between my fingers to get it up to the top. If you have your knitting needle, you kind of push it through. Once I get it through, I grab it and I slide it down, whatever your turning tool that you're using. And now you're going to just press it out, press out your curves. Just if you're using a turning tool, just smooth it out on the edges. So this is what you're looking for. You want to get nice and smooth. Then we're going to press it before we do our top stitching. So again, I found if I just kind of slide it between my fingers to separate it, then I can turn it easily by just kind of rolling it up. I can even get it to where my finger brings it all the way to the top and then just sliding it down. And then pressing out the curves, pressing out your stitches. Being very careful to not press too hard, but we just want to get it to nice and smooth and rolling it out. So you're going to do this to all of your pieces. You've got 24 of these little petals that you're going to be making. Grab it and slide it down. All right, so let's go to the ironing station and we're going to iron all these nice and flat, and then we're going to top stitch all of them. So again, you're going to have 24 of these. Just giving it a good press. Flip it over. Make sure your iron is clean so don't leave no marks. I'm going to grab my block press and set them under there as I go. So the raw edges, you're never going to see them. They get sewn into a seam or they get tucked under the circle, so they're never seen on your project at all. They get sewed down. Now we're doing this one in daisies, and I absolutely love daisies. It was actually my flower for my wedding, but could you imagine making this with a sunflower theme? So they could be yellows or they could be oranges or any colors that you want them to be. These petals, you could layer them. You could have more petals on than what I have with the H. You can fill it in all the holes or spaces. You could take these petals and you could fold them to add a little bit of dimension. That was something I thought about doing. I'll show you what I'm talking about when I get there. But I see that there were so many different things, different ways that you could change up the petals on how you'd want it to be. You could make them shorter if you wanted them to be shorter. You didn't need for them to be quite this long. But once you have them all done, now we're going to have to get them all top stitched. So we're just going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way around and just like we were sewing them together. So we're going to 1/8 of an inch all of these pieces. And I do like to bring my stitch count up a little bit for this one, so I think I'm going to set it on around a 3. And we're just going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Just following along the edge. Now this top stitch on some of them is going to be covered up by your applique stitch. But I found, let's just go ahead and top stitch all of them. Because the ones that hang off the end don't have that applique stitch on there, so you need to have them finished off somehow. Stitching. Kind of keeping them all together. And one more. Right, so do that to all 24 pieces. And I'm going to, I don't know what I did with my little tool, but we're going to get these all separated out. I think I dropped it. And you're going to have some threads. You might want to go ahead and trim off your threads, get them out of your way. So once you have all of these done, now we're at the point where we're going to start assembling our side daisies and our center daisy. So here's all of our petals, all complete. So we are so close to being done. So now we're at the part where it's called creating the center daisy and then adding the side daisies. So the center daisy, so I've got one where I've started it. So, but I'm going to show you the center daisy. So this is where you're going to go ahead and get your big piece right here, and you're going to find your center. So you can measure it, or you can fold it in half. I find it just as easy to fold it in half. Maybe even give it a little press, grab some chalk, mark your center. You don't need to have your center in the center from going the horizontal. You just need your vertical centers. So I've got this side marked. I'm going to mark this side. I think that'll mark it. So yeah, here's my mark here, and here's my mark here. So I am going to chalk line it. My center right here. So that's where I know this is my center. I've got it with a line of chalk. Now you're going to get your circles. So grab your circles that you had got all cut. We're going to start with our center one, our center of the and we're going to get our circles. You're going to grab 2 of them, one without the fusible and one with it. So you're going to grab the 2, and you're going to get, if you didn't mark them all, I think I have all of mine marked. So get the 2, get 2 of them. You're going to place them right sides together. So I'm matching up my little marks. Clip and pin it, however you need to secure it, and you're going to stitch all the way around. So this one we're going to start. This is our center circle, so it gets completely stitched. So we're going to stitch it all the way around. So let's go to this. Go to the sewing machine. We're going to get these stitched. So it doesn't matter which one you have up. This is the interfacing. This is one without, and I've got them right sides together. So we're going to do a 1/4 inch stitch all the way around on these circles right here. So like I said, 2 of them you didn't need to have the marks on because you're stitching them all the way around. All right. When you have that that center, daisy center cut, stitched, get your pinking shears, clip it, go ahead and get it ready to go because we're going to turn it right side out, but we're going to do a little trick. We're going to cut a slit and feed it through the slit. So, because it's going to be on the bottom, it's never going to be seen, it's going to be appliqued down. So I'm going to get all this trimmed all the way around. Now on the piece that does not have the interfacing, so here's my side with the interfacing. So I'm kind of popping this up and I'm going to cut a slit into this one right here in the center. So we're going to cut a slit about an inch or so, just putting that little slit right here because it's going to be hidden underneath once we get it all done. So here's my little slit. Now we're going to go ahead and turn this piece right side out. And push out your edges. Once you get it all pushed out, then you're going to iron it. Get it ironed nice and flat. Now you could top stitch it all the way around too, or you could just wait to that point when you applique it. I believe I would top stitch it, or you can, I'm trying to remember what it is I did. Yes, I did top stitch it. So once you have it turned, you can top stitch it all the way around. This is where I'd probably match up my thread to the yellow, and I would top stitch it all the way around. But we're going to just go ahead and get this one done. And we're going to put this around the 3.5, and we're just going to do a top stitch. I'm not worried about the bobbin thread or underneath it, so I have the one with the slit under bottom so that I can do my little 1/8 of an inch stitch all the way around. You're not going to see the threads on the back side. Just give it a quick stitch all the way around. Again, this will kind of be covered up with the when we do our applique stitch. Okay, trim your threads. Now this is where you're going to need your pins. So here's your center mark that you had drawn on your base, on your main base. And you know that this line right here is center here. So you can take your circle, you kind of fold it in half, get your center in here, and then you can lay it into here. You can double fold it if you want it to run along that line. But you're looking to have your circle centered on your center line, and you've got these guides right here. You got these stitch lines here and here to find your center, where you're going to be placing your circle. And this is where you're going to grab some pins, because once you have it in place, I need for you to pin it, but not pin it so close to the edges, because you're going to be flipping up those edges to start positioning your petals. So we're just going to kind of pin it in a couple places there in the center. Maybe 2 or 3 pins just to hold it in place. When you have it where you've got it, you're lined up here, you're lined up in here, you're centered between these two strips here in the center, then you're just putting a couple pins in it just to secure it so it doesn't shift on you. Now this is where you're going to take 8 of your petals and you're going to start laying them out, positioning them onto your blue piece here. So I am going to grab the one that I've got started so you can see. This one right here. So I have it centered, and I've got 4 of them on here, and I've already appliqued them down. But you're looking to now arrange your petals onto this piece right here. So just to show you what you're doing is you're looking at the lines that you've got going on here. You've got your center line now, you've got these lines here. Now, I didn't want my petals to be centered like this. You could do this where it would be off like this and using the lines here and then just having them here and here. But I decided that I wanted to have 2 going on opposite sides of the line. So here's my line, my center line. So I've kind of positioned them like this on it. So then that means here's my line here, here's my vertical, here's my horizontal. So same thing, I'm kind of laying this down in between here and here. And I'm just tucking it under just a little bit because I'm going to do some final adjusting. So you're just laying them just up underneath that line right there. So here was my line here. So I know I want it to be on just right between it. You're going to be working on getting everything spaced the way you want it here and here. Once you get your centers and your little pieces, you're just going to tuck them under just a little bit because then you're going to be starting to maneuver everything around to get it to how you want it. Another thing I look at is I'm looking at, okay, so this one is opposite of this one, so I'm kind of paying attention to my center, maybe even using a ruler to just find my center and working it all the way across. But daisies don't have to be perfect. They could be any way you want them to be. But the main thing is I'm looking at my line here and I'm looking at my line here and knowing that the distance I want between all of my petals, I want to be pretty close to being the same all the way around. Now I wanted my petals to kind of go off the edge of my base of my main table runner here. So I kind of look at this here, how much it's coming off here, how much it's tucked under my circle here and here. So I'm looking at this angle, I'm looking at this angle, and I'm seeing how much space I have here. So that tells me how much I need to maybe move these here or these petals here. I just keep working with it till I have a look that I'm wanting it to be. Making sure that all of the edges are underneath the center and just making sure I'm trying to get everything all laid out. If you see a thread in the way, you might want to go ahead and trim that off. You want everything to be tucked underneath your circle. Making sure you've got your piece that you cut on the bottom. And I'm just kind of just do a little bit more tweaking. Maybe move here, maybe move it a little bit here, wanting it to be off of here, wanting it to be off on this edge here. Once I have it in the placement that I want it to be all the way around, this is where I start getting my pins out. Because I'm going to put pins in all of these because I want to applique them all at the same time. So I'll put a pin going across the top here, and then I'll put a pin here in the center closer towards the middle of the circle. I'm not worried about the circle. I already have it in place. So I put 2 pins in all of my petals to hold them in place. Because then the next step is we're going to work on the ones on the end, our end petals. You can go ahead and get this one appliqued and then go to your next step, but I like to just do them all at one time. So just getting everything all pinned and put into place. So I'm going to take this one, I'm going to set this one aside. And we're going to go back to the one where I started on it. I'm going to get these 4 petals on here. So we got here, 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 and just like that, I'm just going to kind of maneuver them, looking at my center lines, looking at the distance between all the petals. And then going back to getting everything all pinned down. I also like to look at see how much of an overlap I have coming off. And then getting it all pinned. Now the next daisy, doing our side daisies, that one's a little bit of a trick. So we're going to show you how, once we get our basic start done, then it's going to be pretty much the same layout here, and then appliquing it down. So that is, all right, so this one's all ready to go. Oops, got one more petal. One more petal to get him pinned in place. Then we're going to work on our side daisies. All right. So now that you have your, now we're going to start our side daisies. So now you're going to get your 4 of your circles. So 2 of them with the fusible and 2 without. So we're going to start with 1. We're going to place this one where it's right side up, the fusible is down. And you're going to get 4 of your petals. So what you're doing is you're going to position them between the notches that you have on this circle. Between the notches. So I'm going to try to get me something underneath so I can see that a little better. There we go. So here's my piece, and here are all of my notches. So I'm only doing half of it, half of the notches. So we're going to put a petal, 4 petals on one side. So you've got a fusible down, right side up, and you're going to take a petal and you're going to position the straight edge in between 2 of the notches. And I'm going to clip those. Clip that one into place. So then I'm looking at my next set of notches here and here. I'm going to take another petal and I'm going to position it evenly in between 2 notches here. Clip that one in. The next one, positioning it between the 2 notches. Clip it. And then your last one, you might have to move a couple of petals to get to it. But here's your 2 notches right here. So you're going to position this one, again, just like you did the others, lining up the straight edge between the two notches, and then you're going to clip it to hold it in place. So you've got 4 of them that are clipped. Okay, so now we're going to take them and kind of roll them up into the center. So I found that if I just kind of folded them in half, starting with the one that's on the very bottom. So we'll kind of fold it in half, fold it in half. So I have them all sort of folded in half in the center. Because once I have that done, now I'm going to take my piece that does not have the fusible on it, and we're going to lay this on top. Now we're matching up those notches that we had clipped earlier. So you're going to look for those circles and look for those notches. And you're going to match up the notches and you're going to reposition the clip. And then continuing clipping all the way around. So I'm just repositioning the clip, just lifting it up and letting the fabric fall into place to hold it. And then I'm going to continue clipping all the way around. Now you want to make sure you don't have any of those petals in your stitching. That's why you folded them in half. and you put the clips. So now we're going to stitch all the way around, but we're going to leave an opening. I'd say at least a 1 to 1.5 inch opening somewhere along one of these edges. I tried it where I stitched it all the way around and clipped it. I think I'd done that on one of them and made sure that when I did the cut, that I made sure that it was going to be hidden. If you can stitch all the way around and you want to cut your fabric, I found sometimes it was really hard to stitch all the way around. So we're going to try that. Or you can leave an opening and then you're going to flip it all out and then you'll have it, then you're going to top stitch it. But let's go to where we're going to, see, in the instructions I talk about leaving an opening for it. So you're going to secure it all the way around and then you're going to get that piece created. So let's see, you're for the side daisies, you're going to fold the petals in, stitch all the way around, leaving an opening. You're going to clip your curve, so you're going to clip it all the way around, and then you're going to trim the edges, and then you're going to turn right side out, smooth it all out, fold in the opening to close, and then top stitch all the way around. So let's go ahead and we'll do it like that. But I think you could also, if you're able to stitch all the way around, and then you would do a clip on one edge where you could fold everything out like we did for the center circle, I think you could do that too. All right, so let's find us a little spot where we're going to do leave our opening. I think we're going to do it right here. And we're doing a 1/4 inch all the way around. So we do a little back tack. And just kind of taking it slow because we've got a lot of bulk. You don't want your foot to ride up onto that. Now I'm getting ready to get onto where the actual petals are. Okay. Right now we're going to go ahead and get your pinky shears or clip your curves. So I'm just going to kind of go all the way around. We even clip in onto where the petals are. I think I left my opening just a bit small. See if I can get into there. I don't know, it's going to be tight. So then you're going to just turn it right side out. So let me see if I can get some of these petals to pull through there. Let's get all the way pushed out. A very, very small opening here. Holy cow. There we go. Get it turned. This little technique took me a minute to figure out how to have the petals drape off the edge. All right, so once you get it all turned, I'm going to smooth everything out. Smoothing all of our stitch lines, getting it all nice and smooth. Your petals get a little wrinkled here. And then you're going to top stitch smooth out, and then you're going to top stitch all the way around, and you're going to be folding in this opening. So let's go to the iron and let's get this pressed so that we can get our top stitching done. So you're going to tuck in your little opening. And give it a press. And I like to have the interfaced piece to be the top. Now the reason why I have the interfacing in here is so that it's not see-through. And I think that if you're working where you're putting a light fabric onto a darker background, you don't have that darker background bleeding through, and so your piece that you're appliquing will pop a little bit better than if you was to just not have something in between. So I have the interfacing on the yellow because I saw that if I had just had the two pieces of yellow onto my dark blue background, it got a little muddy. You could also have done that interfacing onto your white, even though we have the two layers here, but I thought it still popped okay. But I always like to add that. To me, that's the secret to really having good applique work, is having something in between the layers so that if you're putting a light onto a dark background, it doesn't get muddy for you. All right, so I've got these all pressed. Now I'm going to top stitch all the way around on our circle, and then we're going to get ready to where we're going to place it onto our blue backing, our blue base. All right, so just like before, I'm going to just raise it up to around a 3, 3.5, and I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Now this, again, this is a stitch that gets hidden in the applique process. Okay. All right, going back to, now we are going to put this piece onto our main blue background. Get these out of our way. So I'm going to show you this one on this end that I already have down. So what you're doing is you're laying this on the edge, and the two outer petals are going to just cover up the very corner of our table runner base. It's just going to cover up the very corner. So you're going to stitch it down here, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to kind of pin it all, and then we'll arrange our other petals, our last 4, right here on this edge here. So you're turning it, and your position. I found if I just position this where I have the edge of my petal just coming over the corner here, it kind of has itself where it positions right into the center right here. Got a thread right here. Let me get that trimmed off. And then once you have it in place, then you're going to get your last 4, your petals. You're going to need your 4. And now you're going to position those around here. So I just kind of do the same thing. I just kind of put them in, just lay them underneath, trying to look at my going across. Making sure that my center is between these two lines here and here. And just a rough layout is what I'm looking at first. When I have it the way I want it here and here, then I'm going to pin it into position here. And then we're just going to start putting some pins in. So here, I'm going to put a pin right here on the edge. It's kind of like on the binding. So this one's in position where I know it's just going to barely cover that corner of here. And I got this one where it's just covering the corner on this side. So I'm positioning it here. I'm going to put another pin in the center here just to hold it. Now our last 4, I got my center line here, so I'm going to place them here and here, looking at my angle that I'm looking for. And then I'm going to grab the last 2 and just kind of center them in here. Looking at my distance between all of them. Now sometimes these petals might have to come in just a little bit more because there's a lot more that's being taken up in between here versus the ones that was in the center because I got stitched in and then flipped out. So I might push them in just a little bit more to make them all about the same length. But it's really not that noticeable. I have this one just coming off a little bit here and this one coming off the table runner just a little bit right here. So I'm looking for it to be about the same. And when I have it into place that I want it, then just like I did for the center, I go ahead and put my pins to hold all of my petals in place. So the first thing that we do is now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start appliquing the petals down. Once the petals are appliqued, then we stitch down the yellow center. So the reason why I did that is so I could lift this up and stitch all the way around and then go to the next petal, stitch all the way around and so forth. So then everything is hidden underneath the yellow the center when I lay it down, and then I'm going to stitch all the way around. Now on these center pieces right here, I'm going to show you this. On this center, on the outer piece right here when I'm stitching down the yellow part, I did a narrow zigzag stitch, and then I was able to come off of the table runner. You'll see where I came off the table runner and was able to finish it as I went all the way around the circle here. So it completely encompassed everything. So you don't do that part until you get all of your white pieces done. Now the ones that go off of the edge, I stitched it till I got right to the binding. And then I tied it off at the binding. And then I stitched it, started at the binding, and came all the way in. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a little bit of a hole or a little gap right here. And if you wanted to close that up, I would probably just do like a hidden tacking stitch just to close that up if you didn't want to have that on any of our pieces. But now that's at the point where all you have to do is just do the applique and stitching everything down, because once you have all of this laid out, and that's why I do all of these pins, and I put a ton of pins in here because I'm wanting to do all of my white pieces first. So I'll do a blanket stitch on all of those, and then I do a zigzag on my center yellow. But I have everything pinned first before I go doing any of it. So I do all this one color. So I start off all of my white and I get all of them done, removing the pins as I go. And once I have all of those pieces appliqued down, finishing off with the yellow, doing the yellow center. Once you have that done, clip your threads and you are good to go. Now I do pull up my thread because I don't want to have the nesting that will happen on the back side. So I always pull up my thread, and I'm going to show you. We'll applique one of these down. I'm going to show you how I do that. So let's take the time. We'll applique one of these petals right here, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So I don't have all of my threads everywhere on the back side. So I'm on my applique stitch. So I have mine set at 3.5 for my width of my stitches, and it's a blanket stitch, and then I've got it for the length is also is at 3. So I kind of lift up my center I've grabbed my thread and I'm positioning so that I'm going to go ahead and drop my foot, and I want my needle to drop down right down beside. So I'm going to drop the needle, raise the needle back up, and I'm going to pull up my bottom thread. So now I have it where it's not going to ball up underneath. I'm going to kind of keep it taut, and then I'm going to just do a couple of stitches just to secure that spot. And then I'm going to stitch all the way up to where I get to the edge of my, right to my binding. So we're going to applique this down. And I widen my stitch so that it comes all the way over to my top stitch. So you won't even really see the top stitch. I mean, you will, but it's going to be kind of going, it goes right, I widen that stitch so it goes all the way to that 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to come to right to where I get to where the binding is. And then I'm going to back tack it there, and then cut my threads. And now I'm going to start at the binding. So doing the same thing to come down to the other side, drop my foot, and I'm going to drop my needle to be right there at the edge of my binding, holding my thread, and then bring my thread up, catch my bobbin thread, pull it through and off to the side. I'm going to tack it my first couple of stitches, and then we're going to go ahead and follow the rest of the way down. And you got a lot of pins that's in this, so just be very careful as you're stitching it down, because they're going to come up on you. So just be very careful when you're working with it, because you've got a lot of pins in here. So when you come up to the end, you're going to hold up your yellow circle, the centered circle. And then I'm going to tack it at the very end. If you wanted, you can go ahead and stitch across that raw edge. I found that it really wasn't necessary. Like you'll see on the ones that I've done previously, I didn't stitch across that raw edge because it's all going to be caught in the stitching when we stitch down our yellow center. So cut my threads. So those are the ones where I have them on the edge. So I can go ahead and remove those pins. And then we're going to do the ones where I'm going to show you doing one that's in the center. So we're going to go all the way around. So again, just lifting up my circle, getting it out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and grab my top thread, needle thread, and do the exact same thing. I'm going to lower my foot, drop my needle down right there at the very edge, bring up my bobbin thread, pull it, kind of hold it taut, and then do a tacking stitch, and then just go ahead and sew all the way around. Now this is where you, if you want to have a blue thread on the bottom in your bobbin and your white on top, here's another hint. When you are working on a curve and you're needing to now turn because of the curve, it is better to have your needle on the outside of your project instead of on the inside. So it's on the, so when your needle drops down, it is on the outside of the petal when you go to turn. That way the stitches will be more consistent than if you have it where the needle is on the petal and then you turn it, you're going to have a little bit of a gap there. So by turning it when it's on the outside, it will be more of a consistent look to your stitch as you're rotating around. Just kind of take it slow as you're going around that curve. Let the machine do the pulling. When you're positioning your needles, when you're pinning it down, make sure to take into account that you've got a foot that might get in the way. And then go all the way to the edge. And you're going to continue doing that to all of them. So that's these two pieces. That's here in the center. Let me show you doing the edges here. So on the daisy that's on the edge, I go ahead and secure the pieces that's attached to the yellow center first. So on this one, I'm going to rotate it around. And we're going to start here and sew off to the edge of the binding. So we're going to go from the center of this petal that's closest to the center yellow, the center of the daisy, and then we're going to go to this edge here. So I also do the same thing. I'm going to drop my foot and then drop my needle right there at the edge of the petal. Bring it back up, grab your bobbin thread, slide it, hold it taut, and then do a couple of tacking stitches, and then go ahead and sew that edge. Making sure I get my needle on the outside before I turn it a little bit. Coming up to the binding where I'm going to do my tacking. So what I do is I just kind of hold it and let it do a couple stitches in place. And then I'll cut my threads. Then I'll do the other side. But this one has to be done from the edge in. So we're going to get it into position, grabbing our top thread, our needle thread, drop the foot, drop the needle right there at the edge by the binding. And then needle up, pop up, grab your bobbin thread, pull it to the side, hold it taut. Do a couple of tacking stitches, just let it do a couple of stitches holding it in place. Now this one you might have to move your needle, your pin out of the way, and then holding it, let it go ahead and stitch down this edge right here. There. And you will continue doing that. So that's your first two, and then you're going to tack all of these down. And then the last step is I like to do a zigzag, a narrow zigzag. And I believe when I did my zigzag stitch, I had it at 3.5 was my width for this one. And then I think I put it at 75. And I stitched all the way around. So as I was stitching, it was like doing an applique on the edge that was on the actual base. But when I came to where I was now going to be off, I just stitched all the way around and just kind of just caught it to catch this on the other side. So once you have all of that stitching done, and I changed my thread, I went ahead and did the yellow for that, your piece is all complete. The only thing left to do would be just to trim away some of your threads on the back. You could trim them or you could bury them. I just went ahead and just trimmed them up like these little pieces right here because I did tack it down, so then I could just trim them, or you could go ahead and just thread them. If they're long enough, thread them through a little needle and bury them in there. But I just trimmed them up. And once you have it all done, you should have a project that looks like, let me grab the one that we did. I have it over here somewhere. Here we go. This is what you should have it looking like when you're all completely done. All done. And again, it should measure approximately 16, I think, from petal to petal, from the edge of the petal. If you have your petals dropping off, it is 16 inches wide, and long it is, I think I have it on the paper. Long it is 54 inches all the way across. So this is the Daisy May, and I hope you enjoyed making Daisy May. Again, daisies are absolutely one of my happy favorite flowers. That and sunflowers, they're just such a happy, beautiful flower. And again, it was part of my wedding, and I hope you enjoy it. And then try making this in other colorways. Some of the things I had talked about was if you wanted to take the petals and say you wanted to layer them up and do other things with them. So if you wanted to have more petals on here, you could easily add more. One of the other things I thought about was where you could take it and add some dimension to it. So let's go back to the one that we haven't quite finished. So say you wanted to add a little bit more dimension to your center petal. So what if you was to take your petal and pinch it? You could do a little bit of a pinch like this, and then have it underneath. So now you can have a dimension as you're sewing it down by putting that little bit of a pinch or pleat there in the center when you go to stitch it down. Now it's going to make it a little bit wider in between these petals here, but it's going to add a little bit of a dimension to it. There's even those products out there that you can iron, and you can add where it can add it some form to where you could put it in there, like the interfacing. I believe Bolsel makes it, where you can have it stitched in, and when you add heat to it, it becomes moldable. So that might be something that you might want to add to your petals if you wanted to add some more dimension to it. But again, if you wanted your petals to be shorter, they could be absolutely shorter. You could make them, I don't know if you could make them, I suppose you could make them longer, but you could have them be short petals going all the way around instead of the larger petals. You could just have it where be a smaller daisy going in. I even thought about what if I wanted to have just a half of a daisy coming off, where it'd be looking like you'd be looking at it from a side angle, and you just see the top of the circle, and then the petals just kind of draping off. Maybe something similar to like this. Imagine these petals gone, but then you just have the half daisy. So yeah, I would still kind of keep some of the circle here to kind of where it would curve up or mound out. But there's just, again, so many different things that you could do with the daisy. You can make sunflowers, you could add a whole bunch of them, and you could have maybe a zinnia. You can create all kinds of different flowers with just this simple shape right here. So that is the Daisy May, and I want to thank you all for getting in the Sew and Show subscription box. This was probably one of my favorite projects to design and create for you. I knew I wanted to create something. I wanted it to be a project that you could learn another technique, a long quilt as you go, some applique work. It just was absolutely fun. Of course, I haven't seen anything like this one where the petal drops off at the end of the table runner to give it another dimension. But this one again was our May 2025. This is Daisy May. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you really enjoyed it. So be sure to post a picture of what you got in your box, or your finished project, or any project that you might have made with this one during the next month, so that you can be in for our drawing that we'll be doing the first week of June. And June boxes will be coming out soon too, so that one's a really good one. I hope you enjoy it. But thank you again. You all have a wonderful day, and stay safe and dry and warm wherever you may be. Bye-bye, everybody.